Hey, what's up guys? Combat Critic here. In this video, I want to give my pick for this upcoming fight between Robbie Lawler and Nico Price. Let's get started. If we look at the records of these two fighters, starting with Robbie, he has had 46 professional MMA bouts and he has won 29, lost 16. If we talk about his 29 wins, so 21 of those have come via knockout, so he is really a knockout artist, and just one win via sub and 7 via decision. If you talk about his 16 losses, he's been KO'd 4 times, he's been submitted 5 times, and lost via decision 7 times. He also has a no contest on his record. If you talk about Nico Price, so Nico has 23 fights, he's won 15 and lost 6, so significantly lesser experience for Nico compared to Robbie Lawler. If you talk about his 15 wins, he has 10 wins via knockout, 3 via submission, and 2 via decision. If we talk about his 6 losses, he has been KO'd 4 times and he's lost by submission once and by decision also once. He has 2 no contest on his record. So overall, both these guys are looking to knock you out, but I believe Rob, Robbie Lawler has better record than Nico Price. Nico Price has been KO'd 4 times already, whereas Robbie has been also KO'd 4 times, but it is in 16 of his losses. And we can only imagine if these losses of Nico Price start increasing, he will get more KO losses on his record. Now let's take a look at the physical and career stats of these two guys, starting with the height. So height is 5 feet 11 for Robbie Lawler, and it is 6 feet 0 for Nico Price. So Nico will have a 1 inch height advantage. Weight is even at 170 pounds for both these guys. Reach is 74 inches for Robbie and it is 76 inches for Nico Price. So Nico will have a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Stance is southpaw for Robbie and it is orthodox for Nico. If we talk about the age, so Robbie is really old now. He is, I believe, 41, 42 years old. And if you talk about Nico, he is around 7 years younger, so he must be 35 or 36 years old. So both these guys are not young by any means. However, Robbie is really at the tail end of his career. Now let's talk about the career statistics. First up, we have the striking numbers, and the first metric we have is the strikes landed per minute. This signifies the number of significant strikes that you land on your opponent per minute on average. This is 3.83 for Robbie, and it is 5.48 for Nico Price. So in this case, you want this number to be as high as possible because you are landing more significant strikes on your opponent per minute. So Price will have an advantage here. If we look at the striking accuracy, Lawler's accuracy is 46%, whereas Price is 42%. So the advantage here goes to Lawler. He is more accurate with his strikes. Next up, we have the strikes absorbed per minute. So this is the opposite of strikes landed per minute. This signifies the number of significant strikes that you absorb from your opponent per minute. This is 4.67 for Robbie Lawler and it is 5.57 for Nico Price. You want this to be as low as possible because you are getting hit less. So in this case, the advantage goes to Robbie. Striking defense is 59% for Robbie and is 48% for Nico. So again, the advantage here goes to Robbie. Overall, in the striking, I think looking at these numbers, the only metric that favors Nico is the strikes landed per minute. Rest of the metrics like the striking accuracy, strikes absorbed per minute, and striking defense favor Robbie. So the first two metrics that we saw were the offensive striking metrics, which is strikes landed per minute and the striking accuracy. The last two metrics are the defensive striking metrics. So the defensive striking really favors Robbie. Now let's take a look at the wrestling, grappling, and BJJ statistics. First up, we have the takedown average, which is 0.65 for Robbie and it is 0.7 for Nico. So both these guys are pretty even, but a slight advantage goes to Nico. Takedown accuracy is 64% for Robbie and it is just 20% for Nico. So here the advantage goes to Robbie Lawler. Takedown defense is 65% for Robbie and it is 64% for Nico. So both these guys are very even, but a very slight advantage goes to Robbie. Submission average is 0 for Robbie. Robbie has never attempted a submission in the UFC. It's a crazy statistic, but it's true. If we talk about Nico Price, his submission average is 0.7, so he will have an advantage here. He is the slightly better BJJ guy. Now let's take a look at the significant strikes by position. So 68% of all the strikes that Robbie lands are in the standing position, 23% in the clinch, and 9% on the ground. If we talk about Nico, 79% of all his strikes are in the standing position, 11% are in the clinch, and 10% on the ground. So the only difference is that Robbie is landing a lot more strikes in the clinch, whereas Nico is mostly in the standing only. Now let's take a look at the significant strikes by target. So 76% of all the strikes that Robbie throws are to the head, 20% to the body, and just 4% to the leg. So he is not a leg kicker at all. If we talk about Nico, 59% of all his strikes are to the head, 16% to the body, and 25% to the leg. So Nico goes to the leg more often than Robbie, whereas Robbie goes to the body more often than Nico, relatively speaking. Now let's take a look at the previous performances of these two fighters, starting with Robbie Lawler. So in his last fight, Robbie got TKO'd by Brian Barberena in the second round, and this happened in July of last year. So Robbie is really at the tail end of his career, and he was a former welterweight champion, but now things are not looking good. Before that, he beat Nick Diaz, but this had more to do with the fact that Nick Diaz came unprepared for this fight. So you should not really see this as a win. And before that, he lost to Neil Magny by unanimous decision back in August of 2020. And before that, lost to Colby Covington by unanimous decision in August of 2019. Lost to Ben Askren. This should have been a win for Robbie Lawler, but anyway, so this, I don't really count this as a loss. I think this should have been a win for Robbie. He looked really good, and he KO'd Ben Askren in the opening seconds of this fight. And before that, he beat Rafael dos Anjos he lost to RDA by unanimous decision. This fight happened in December of 2017. So really, in his record, there's really no win after December 2017 if you ignore the Nick Diaz fight. Before that, he beat Donald Cerrone by unanimous decision, and this is the only credible win. This happened in July of 2017. This is his latest credible win. I don't count this Nick Diaz win as a win because Nick came in unprepared for this fight. Before that, he got KO'd by Tyron Woodley in the first round, and before that, he beat Carlos Condit via split decision. However, these fights were in 2016. It's a long time has passed. Robbie Lawler is not the same fighter that he was. He is 41 or 42 years old. I think he might retire after this fight with Nico Price. Now let's take a look at Nico's record. So Nico Price in his last fight lost to Philip Rowe via TKO in the third round, and this happened in December of last year. And before that, he beat Alex Oliveira via unanimous decision in October of 2021. Before that, he lost to Michel Pereira via unanimous decision in July of 2021. This was a 3-round fight. And before that, he had a fight with Donald Cerrone, where a lot of people praised Donald for being old but still going with Nico Price and putting on a show. This fight happened in September of 2020. It was a 3-round fight. And if you look at Donald Cerrone, so this version of Robbie Lawler back in 2017 beat Donald Cerrone. So if this fight between Nico Price and Robbie Lawler would have taken place back in 2017, I would have picked Robbie. He is on paper the better guy. We have seen the striking statistics. They are mostly in favor with Robbie, and the other stats as well. However, the only thing that is concerning is his age. He is really at the end of his career. Now let's go back to Nico Price's record. If we talk about the fight before this, he lost to Vicente Luque via TKO in the third round. Before that, he beat James Vick via KO in the first round, lost to Geoff Neal via TKO in the second round. So His UFC career last few years has been one loss, one win. Like it's 50-50 between these two. Before that, again he won again against Tim Means via knockout in the first round, and before that again lost to Abdul Razak Al Hassan via knockout in the first round. So it is a 50-50 record for Tim Means. And keep in mind that Tim Means is younger, but he is not, I will say, that young. He is 35 or 36 years old, so even he is pretty old. If this fight would have happened earlier, back in 2017, back in 2018, I would have picked Robbie Lawler without hesitation. However, it is happening in 2023 and Robbie is older. However, I still believe that Robbie can win this fight. I'm picking him to win this fight. I think Nico is just not that good, and Robbie, if he comes in on point and maybe he trained well, he can win this fight. And Nico Price, I don't think, is not on his level. Prime Robbie obviously beats Nico, but we are talking about a 42-year-old Robbie who might very well retire after this fight. I just hope he retires with a win, and I'm picking him to win this fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.